So, I want to sell you on watching The Raid and then watching The Raid 2, because they're both incredible movies. And if you, like me, have a deep and abiding passion for brutal action movies and incredible fight choreography, then the Raid movies are going to be able to scratch those itches like no other. If you don't particularly care for the brutality though, then you might want to stop the video now, because The Raid is very violent, bloody, and gory, and absolutely not for everyone as a result. Now that we're all clear though, all I need to do to sell you on The Raid and The Raid 2 is show you a little of this, and this, some of this, and a smidge of this. Fucking awesome, right? If any of those clips caught your interest at all, then stop what you're doing and just go watch The Raid and The Raid 2. Both films are filled to the brim with action scenes every bit as brutal and well choreographed as that, and will give you an absolutely wild good time. Go on, shoo now. The video will be here when you get back, I promise. Everybody's gone now? But, okay, I guess if you still need a little convincing, and I'm not entirely sure how you could, then we can talk a bit about the films and what make them so great. The Raid itself actually has a very simple premise. We follow a team of Indonesian SWAT police officers as they make a raid on a local drug lord's apartment complex, attempting to take him out in his criminal-filled base of operations. And what makes it so special is how very normal this movie feels up until the 30-minute mark, where the main character Rama actually starts using Pencak Silat, a martial arts style unique to Indonesia, to fight his way through a hallway full of goons. Seriously, the movie starts with this, and goes to this, without ever breaking the sweat or questioning itself. It's goddamn exhilarating. This film is also incredibly tense, basically throwing these cops into a survival horror film where they're forced to run and hide against an overwhelming force, and it doesn't let that tension up until the movie is over. The fight scenes in this movie, despite being very heavily choreographed, feel very raw in a way you don't often see in most action movies. Every character in this movie is clearly fighting for survival, taking every opportunity and cheap shot available to them in order to come out on top. And this makes all the violence feel very animalistic and untamed, while never losing a bit of its intelligence, since we also constantly see the wheels turning in every character's head as they execute upon every idea that might give them a chance at survival. There's also a pretty heavy political subtext to this movie, scattered amidst all the violence. A key plot point in this movie is that this raid is entirely off the books, and being led by a corrupt cop with a financial incentive to want to take down the drug lord who owns the apartment complex. It's not really developed in a particularly meaningful way, but with the exception of our main hero, Rama, and the captain of the raid, Jaka, the police are framed as an oppressive, unnecessarily violent force, whose motivations for violence are entirely unjustified, putting them, for the most part, on equal ground with the landlord, who coerces his residents into violence against the state with the promise of free rent for life.
Selamat pagi, teman-teman. Mungkin Anda sudah mendengar kalau kita kedatangan tamu tadi undang. Bukan saya yang undang dan mereka tidak kita terima di sini. Demi kepentingan kita semua, Anda bisa memberikan bantuan Anda dalam mengusir kutu-kutu ini. Dan Anda akan mendapatkan imbalan tinggal tanpa biaya. Anda bisa menemui tamu tadi undang ini di lantai 6. Selamat bekerja. Dan jangan lupa bersenang-senang.
Which, I mean, not a deal I'd take, but I can hardly blame him. The other main story in this film is of Rama and his brother, Andy, who both meet up for the first time in 6 years during the raid of this apartment complex. In order to save his brother, Andy immediately betrays his boss and helps hide Rama, though he ends up caught and tortured for this by the boss's other right hand, Mad Dog. This subplot does its best to contribute to a theme of there being good people on both sides of the law, and it leads directly into the closest we get to a happy ending, with Rama eventually being able to escape the apartment complex thanks to his brother's help. More than that though, this story is here to allow for a fight scene of Mad Dog against both Rama and Andy, so that they can all show off their incredible abilities as stunt performers. And yeah, I got no complaints about that, because... God damn. That fight scene is worth whatever plot justification it took to get there. Really though, that's a lot of what the raid is. A simple setup with a plot that, while including some decent subtext, mostly exists to push our characters from fight scene to fight scene, so that the director, Gareth Evans, can show off the incredible martial arts talents of Iko Uwais, Yayan Ruhian, and Donnie Alamsaya, who are just plain phenomenal to watch. Personally, my favorite character from the movie is actually Mad Dog, played by Ruhian, partially because I love the archetype of the warrior who loves the thrill of hand-to-hand combat above all else.
Sebenarnya kurang kalau begini. Nggak ada gregetnya. Tinggal tarik pelatuk, macam pisang lendar aja. Dan ini baru asik. Ini baru ada greget. Ini permainan yang suka.
And partially because he's got an incredibly subtle charisma about him that just makes him a treat to watch. I mean, this is what he does in the lead up to the fight scene against Rama and Andy. Bad ass. I fucking love it. If any of that convinced you that The Raid is something you want to check out, go buy or rent it and watch it, and then if you like it, watch The Raid 2, and finish this video right after. Because if you liked The Raid, you will fucking adore The Raid 2. And you deserve to go into that movie as unspoiled as you possibly can. It will take you on an incredible thrill ride that I've never seen the likes of before. Okay, you went and watched it, right? You promise? Alright, now that you've seen it, first of all, that fucking ruled, didn't it? Yeah, it fucking ruled. It ruled so goddamn hard, like, fuck, that's a good movie. And unlike The Raid 2 hits you with all its intention from scene fucking 1. I mean, what, they killed off his brother at the start? He spent 2 years in prison undercover? Is fucking alive? This is also crazy good. I can't take it. This movie, the fight scenes, them crawling in the mud, just kicking the fucking shit out of each other. Rama chasing down the fucking porn recorder. Oh, just, yeah. Okay. I calmed down. But yeah, for real. The Raid 2 is a goddamn masterpiece of action cinema and does things and goes places that the original couldn't have even dreamed of. The first thing you notice about The Raid 2 is how it immediately throws out just about every story thread established in the first film, beginning by killing off Andy, the corrupt cop leading the last raid, and pulling Rama into an undercover sting operation that separates him from his family for 2 years, so that he can ingratiate himself to the son of a crime lord while in prison. The only story thread from the raid that does get followed up on is the leader of corruption within the police force being a man named Reza, which mostly just served as a throwaway line in the original film to demonstrate that police corruption ran to the very top. Departing like this is a fucking ballsy move, especially since all the Raid 2 story needed to be was a vehicle for more Pencock-Salat fight scenes. But it sold perfectly thanks to Rama, whose own shock and surprise at the ultimate pointlessness of his actions in the raid mirror our own. There's also an incredible payoff to shuttering the baggage of the first film's story like this. The all-out gang war that explodes between the Indonesian gang and the Japanese gang that ruled the city of Jakarta. This gang war is spurred on by the hubris and carelessness of Uko, the son of the Indonesian crime lord Bangun, whose gang holds dominance over most of the city, and results in the most visceral and exciting fight scenes in the entire film. Those scenes are ones I've already shown clips of, Baseball Batman and Hammer Girl individually taking on teams of Japanese gangsters and destroying them with ease, style, and a flair for the fucking dramatic. I mean, just watch this. How fucking cool is that? It's so fucking cool. Why aren't there more movies this cool? It's so good. Fucking home run. He fucking calls it out and he hits the ball and it's a fuck. Baseball Batman, Hammer Girl, and the Assassin also all eventually take on Rama, which is absolutely great, but not something I'd spoil for you in a million years, even if you asked me to. You want to see those fight scenes? You gotta see the movie. And no, you don't get to just look them up on YouTube. They are way better in context. Mama Jacqueline commands that of you. You are not allowed to just look up the fight scenes. I swear to God, if you go and just look up the fight scenes, I will come to your house and I will do something. I don't know what I'll do, but you'll be in trouble. You'll be in trouble. These fight scenes all take place as a part of Rama's final assault on the restaurant where Uko, Reza, and Bejo, the gangster responsible for killing Rama's brother and leading the two rival gangs into war, have all convened in order to negotiate a corrupt deal for total control of Jakarta. This final scene is the climax of Rama's story, as he single-handedly leads an assault on the last remaining vestiges of criminal power and corruption that have infected his city and destroyed his life. And it's this ordeal, combined with the broken promises of the cop that put him undercover, that fully push Rama out of the naive, lawful, optimistic cop he once was, choosing to once and for all abandon his life of violence. He's been used and abused by both the state and the criminal powers in this city, costing him the first 2 years of his son's life and leaving him completely broken and dismayed by a system of law so corrupt and fractured that it can't even take down a crime lord after Rama has witnessed just about any crimes he would have needed to put him away for life. It's with this that the Raid 2 posits that the only solution to systemic violence and corruption is a violent dismantling of the powers that keep that system in place, and or an abandonment of any institution that fails to uphold the ideals of justice that it claims to. Even as the Raid 2 supports violent dismantling of power structures though, it heavily critiques the use of violence for imperialism and control. The empire at play here is a criminal empire, not a national one, but the story still fits, with Uko's main motivation for instigating a war between his father's gang and the Japanese gang being a desire to return to a violent, vengeful status quo of the past, where the gangs in the city were constantly at war over territory and perceived threats to dominance or the gang's honor. Uko's desire to be a violent war king in Jakarta is what makes him vulnerable to the manipulation of Bejo, who preys on Uko's insecurities and predilections towards violence in order to sway him to his side, even going so far as to offer Uko a literal human sacrifice as a peace offering, despite those sacrificed being his own men who he ordered to attack Uko while they were all in prison together. Uko's violent, imperialistic tendencies are countered in his father, Bangun, who despite running an inherently violent organization, has grown to understand the value of peace with the other gangs, and holds a truce with them in order to allow his operations of violent extortion and assassination to run smoothly. Now, make no mistake, Bangun is evil, but there is a certain amount of respectability to the way he maintains peace, and specifically chooses to ignore aggression from the Japanese gang in order to prevent all-out war from breaking out. His efforts still fail, and he realizes that his son's foolishness will ultimately cost them their entire criminal empire, but that small effort of prevention counts for a lot, as far as our conception of his character goes, and it makes him the second most sympathetic character in the film. Under no circumstances will I show you the most sympathetic character though, because the very act of seeing him would spoil who he is. This character is Prakoso, and he, like Rama, is at his core a family man, whose greatest skill is an ability to commit violence against others. When we first meet him, he's sitting like a homeless man on the streets, eating some street food and waiting for his target to emerge, hunting and killing his target like the villain of a slasher movie, and refusing to kill anyone besides his singular target. Koso is goddamn terrifying and totally badass at the same time, but where he rises above the other characters in this film is when he has a short but insightful conversation with his wife. As best we can tell, all of Koso's money goes directly to his wife, in order to provide for her and his now teenage son, who he has not been allowed to see for years. Despite Koso's pleading though, his wife refuses to allow him to see his son, even as a complete stranger, as she does not want her son to have any connection to a killer like Koso. It's clear from this scene that Koso himself wants to change, but does not feel like he has any skills beyond his capabilities for violence that could properly support his family. Even as he fails to find a sympathetic ear from his wife though, Koso remains a close friend to Bangun, and is essentially an uncle to Uko, even going so far as to try and help impart the lessons of peace learned the hard way by Bangun into Uko, though to no avail. Koso's relationship with Bangun is what inevitably contributes to his downfall though, as Uko leads him into an ambush by Bejo's men, as his first attempt to spur his father into a gang war. It's fucking heartbreaking to see Koso's goodwill and trust betrayed like this by Uko, especially since Koso gets to see that Uko is in on the attack at the very end of the fight, just before he is taken out by the assassin. This waste of life and potential hangs over the upcoming gang war like a dark cloud, helping to signify how pointless almost all of the violence in this movie is, and how even the most sympathetic characters can be caught in its path of destruction. While we're on the subject, the way that the Raid 2 handles violence overall is kind of fascinating. There's almost a visible line separating the violence included because it's really fucking cool to watch, like the scenes with Hammer Girl, Precoso, and Baseball Batman, and the violence committed because of a broken system, or inhuman desires of a person, like Uko's cold-blooded murder of 5 of Beijo's men, or the brutality of the prison guards against a rioting prison populace. That the film manages to simultaneously include such alternately grotesque and thrilling sequences of violence is impressive in its own right. And it adds a level of nuance to a film that could easily be state-sponsored violence propaganda. This film is also unique in that it actively seeks to empower disabled people, and does what in my estimation is a pretty stellar job of it. Hammer Girl, for example, is deaf, and Baseball Bat Guy uses sign language to communicate with her, while Beijo is physically disabled and requires a cane to walk. Even better, this representation isn't commented on. It's just a fact about these characters worked into the script because deaf people and cane users exist, and deserve to be in cool action movies too. And while I may not be able to comment on whether or not this works as good deaf representation or not, as someone who does sometimes need to use a cane to walk, I can definitely say that it was incredibly exciting to see someone disabled like me get to be a character who gets in on the action, and is all around pretty freaking cool. If all of that isn't enough to compel you to watch The Raid and The Raid 2, I don't know what to tell you. They're both incredibly fun action movies that have some of the most brutal fight choreography I've ever seen, but never end up feeling like they're mean-spirited, or in service of fascist rhetoric or state propaganda. I can say for sure that I love them to death. And if action movies like this are up your alley, then you owe it to yourself to check them out.
Let me sit on top of your knee. Go ahead and take care of business for me, for me, for me.
Yeah, wanna hear myself? Proud to drop. You can bring the beat up in the headphones. Bring the beat up a little bit.